everyone. So today I'm going to talk about how you can build your own unit study. Whether you are a homeschool parent, homeschool co-op teacher, or even a teacher in a private or public school, you can also do unit studies. Now, I am a homeschool mom. I am a former public and private school teacher. I also do homeschool evaluations for the state of Florida, and I do consultations for homeschoolers. And I, being a homeschool mom that I am, did a unit study with my kids this summer because we could not find, I'm going to use this example several times in this video, the study of modern day Israel, which is super important to our family. And I'm going to use that as, like I said, I'm going to use that as some examples here to help share with you how to build your own unit study. So first of all, let's just get right into it. What is a unit study? So a unit study is when you take a central topic or theme and you're going to study that and you're going to kind of cross curriculum it, okay? So there's going to be vocabulary, spelling, comprehension, grammar, reading, writing. You might have some art projects, music, field trip, just anything. You're just expanding on this one topic, and everything that you do academic-wise, most of the time with the exception of math, but you could use math. You could do math in there. You could. If you're very creative, you could do it. But for most of it, you're going to be doing that topic the whole day and infusing those other ideas within there, okay? And some people kind of get a little freaked out with unit studies because they start to worry, oh my gosh, my kid's in 6th grade, I have to meet certain benchmark and teach them certain vocabulary words to know what a 6th grader is supposed to know. Let me just take a little sidestep here to reassure you that children, middle schoolers, high schoolers, even adults, we learn vocabulary, spelling, and how to write better when we have it themed. 40% better. And there has been a study on this. It's actually how children's brains work. Specifically, children's brains works. So you don't just say, hey, the bear is brown. You show them pictures of a brown bear. You know, maybe you live in North Carolina and you see a brown bear. They're going to remember those things. Our brains, if you ever notice, sometimes getting those vocabulary books and just drilling those vocabulary words, it's hard to do that. But if you have experience that are connected to those words, you're going to retain that information better. Okay, I know I had a vocabulary book when I was in school. I'm gonna tell you what, I don't remember anything. Probably don't. I don't remember anything in that book. I really don't. But I do remember some vocabulary words that are connected with experiences in my life. Same with spelling. With that being said, unit studies are really cool. They help kids have fun. They help middle schoolers have fun, high schoolers have fun, and retain the information that they need to retain. So now that we got that out of the way, let me give you a few examples of some unit studies that if you're getting ready to build your own unit study, it might be, not all the time, might be something that you might be interested in looking at. So some of the most popular ones out there, we have Gather Round. We also have Total Language Plus, which I love. That one is specifically with novels. There's also Beyond the Page, which is very similar to Total Language Plus, except it's secular. Total Language Plus is going to be Christian. And then there's also My Father's World, and a ton of stuff. And I'm not joking. Ton of stuff on teachers, paid teachers. So the first thing that you want to do when you're deciding to do a unit study is you want to pick a topic or theme. And you also want to know what age group that you're addressing. It could be anything you want. Animals, types of animals. It could be on a historical subject, a science subject. Now, we picked the topic modern day Israel. Elementary school, middle school. That's the age group that I was kind of targeting. And I knew that I was going to have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 9-year-old in there. And also my youngest, who is 6, that has Down syndrome, she was in and out. She got to do some coloring along with it. So I knew that I needed kind of a wide range of activities and also a lot of reading and things that had to make them work. Now, when you are doing a unit study for a broad range like that, a lot of people will say, teach to the oldest. So if you're doing read alouds, you want to teach the oldest and the little ones kind of catch up. You're not going to give the little ones a full writing activity. In fact, the easiest thing to do with the little ones is say, hey, draw what you hear, or coloring pages on the topic that you're discussing. So teach to the older ones, the little ones will kind of catch up with the information, and then coloring pages. Drawing, you can add some simple vocabulary and spelling in there, but once again, teach to the older kids. The little ones will catch up. But don't expect them to be able to do everything that your older kids are doing. Length. Now this is important kind of when you're planning. A lot of people don't even want to put the length in there because they're like, we're just going to keep going until we stop, which that's what we did. But some people want to set, okay, I'm only doing this for 9 weeks. Some people are planners and they need to plan week by week by week by week. So understanding the length in which you're doing it is also something that you might want to consider in the beginning when you're putting your unit study together. The next step is to find books and materials, and you want to find a spine. So a spine is pretty much your go-to book. You're going to use it as a guide. It's going to keep you focused as you go through your unit study. So for us, I'll kind of show you, there's like a ton of books that we have. This is just some of them. Okay, but this right here, this was our spine right here. We did not go through this book page by page by page and do every single activity in there. Now this book, actually you can, and now that I've gone through it with my kids, but there were so many other things that I wanted to touch on in regards to modern day Israel that this book did not recommend or suggest or even talk about it. So what I did is I went through the table of contents with this book and I made some decisions, as in, I want to touch on this, I want to touch on that, etc. Of course, when we're doing modern day Israel, I knew we needed to get some background information before we could really delve into when Israel became a nation. And so I also had some secondary sources. This was a series that I found. This is more history of the Jewish people, not as much modern day Israel, but I was able to get some good stuff about the pogroms and Russia and even the Holocaust in here as well. Of course, when you're doing modern day Israel, you have to talk about the Holocaust. It's just part of it. And so we were able to read. There's like so many books on the Holocaust, right? So we always had a book that we were reading together as a group. And then on top of that, movies and videos. YouTube, there are so many YouTube channels out there that are history-based YouTube channels. And we have a couple of our favorites that my kids really, really enjoy. My kids love the ones that have the map and the movement of this person fighting this person, and they show you on the map. They love that videos. And I think it's like Kings and Generals, I don't know, they love that channel. So media, besides YouTube channels, there are lots of movies out there that you can watch. We watched Fiddler on the Roof. That was one of the movies that we watched. We watched a Holocaust movie. We did not watch Schindler's List. A little too advanced for elementary school, but I told them about it. We did Hiding Place. We also watched, there's a modern day Israel, I think it's called Beneath the Helmet. It's a documentary on the IDF soldiers, and so good. It was so good. It's mostly in Hebrew, so that was really cool. So there you go, the media, the books, the spine. Now, then you get to decide if you want to incorporate some spelling and vocabulary in grammar and dictation. So dictation is great. Dictation, when I do dictation with my kids, I do dictation just right off the back. Like, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna work on our unit study, get your notebook out, we're doing dictation. And that's basically when you read them something and then they have to write it out. You can incorporate grammar now by having, after they write it out, they see how it is written correctly, and they can check their grammar with the commas and the quotations and all of that kind of stuff. And then you can have them label adjective, adverb, verb, those kind of things after dictation. Dictation's great. You're touching on handwriting, you're touching on grammar, you're touching on spelling, and you're working on that oral listening skills. So I do like to start dictation right off the back whenever I'm doing a unit study. Next, spelling and vocabulary. So as you're going through the unit study, you can start to build a vocabulary list and a spelling list. You can plan that out in advance as well. So one of these books right here, they actually had a vocabulary list, keywords and phrases right there. So I didn't have to really worry too much when I used this book what words to use. Then there's also the idea of essays, right? Maybe at the end of the week, you want to have them write an essay. Maybe you want to have them write an essay at the end of each chapter. That's your decision again. There's also art projects and music projects. That can be part of your project. So for us, when we were doing Israel, of course, my kids had to pick the final project for them was to pick a famous person through modern day Israel and do a report on them and present it to the rest of the family. Another one is the midway point, is the kids built their own kibbutz. Now that one was fun because they all had a different role in that, and we got to decide which of our friends was going to have which job based on their personality, and they made them, oh, that was the best one. They made like a big old map and had the location. They had to work together as a team, and oh, it was so good. I actually have a video where I kind of share a little bit about them working on that and show you them working on that if you want to see it. I have it in the links up there. But that right there was an amazing project that we put together. Relief maps are great if you're doing history. Also, an atlas is another thing that's really good to have with your unit study. Of course, when you're planning your unit study, you're writing all these ideas down, field trips. Maybe there's a Holocaust museum, that was something that was around. I would have loved to go to Israel for our field trip, but it's kind of expensive, We also had a lot of extra books just kind of lying around. These are really old school. We found these and we got these free. They're kind of old school picture books when tourists went to Israel and wanted to get their little souvenir. I went to Israel, look at my book. This is what we saw, because they didn't have phones back then. I also got another one. This one's actually pretty cool, where you go through and there's overlays, right? You can find some of these. These are great for some of the historical stuff. What it looks like now. And then we have a really cool book on Masada, which is a place in Israel. That's really cool. And so we went through this book, and then we had some coloring sheets that the kids got to color, especially Hannah when we were reading. She loves coloring. So we did some of those. We also had this one, kind of more of a reference book that we used. If the kids had questions, I can refer to this. They also used that with their final projects to do some research from, along with looking online. And I know this sounds like so much stuff to you guys, but it does come together. Let's talk about how it does come together. So you have all these resources, and you have all these plans, and you have all these thoughts. The easiest thing for you to do is to find a weekly pattern. Get yourself in a pattern, okay? Every Friday maybe could be project, fun day, fun Friday, field trip day, movie day, Friday. That's the day that you do the fun stuff. So that's what we did. So we had movies, field trips, projects on Friday. We don't do that during the rest of the week. We only do that on Friday. Another thing that we planned out is the other 4 days, dictation. Dictation is how we started everything out. And you know what? Dictation does take some time. Dictation takes could take up to an hour. But remember it could take 30 minutes, realistically 30 minutes, but it could take an hour depending upon how much you want to dictate. And to be honest, dictation could be 2-3 sentences. Really, that's all you need. But you're practicing your grammar, practicing spelling, practicing vocabulary sometimes. You can incorporate that in there. You're practicing handwriting. There are many times that I said to my kids, your handwriting, you need to go back and rewrite that. Try it again. You're practicing oral skills, like I mentioned before. So we always started with dictation, okay? Next, if we were reading from the textbook, we would read the chapter from the textbook. So Mondays were textbook days. And this is where I would just pull out a chapter and I would start reading. There are questions in here that I can ask my kids. but I always made sure that I had room for me to ask my kind of questions and open for discussion, because when you do a unit study and something that the kids may be interested in, I guarantee you that they're going to have a lot of questions. And there were plenty of times during this unit study where all the kids were asking me the same, maybe not the same question, but questions at the same time, because it was so fascinating. And especially if you love the subject, show that interest and they get involved, it becomes a discussion. And that's when they really, really, really learn. So this Monday was read through the book day, answering questions. It was mostly oral. If we needed to go to YouTube, which sometimes happens, they did have some YouTube links in here, but sometimes I wanted them to see what a kibbutz was. We went to YouTube and watched a video. Maybe there was a war because Israel had a lot of wars. We would go online to see the map and how things kind of worked. So Monday was kind of the introduction to this. So Tuesday, I would start on the, like I said, dictation, and then we would start with our vocabulary and spelling words. Now, mind you, sometimes we would, as we went through this, we would pull those vocabulary words out and write them down. But then Tuesday would be the day that we would define them and practice spelling them and talk about them a little bit. Sometimes on Tuesday we would expand a little bit with the lesson, but sometimes we would, do some research in this book, maybe discuss it a little bit more, but we did look at pictures. We did spend a lot of time reading books, and the kids had to write summaries from the books. So they would, and I was really big on these summaries, okay? So that's one of the things that we do in our family. These books were amazing. This one was the 6-Day Hero. This one was based after the 6-Day War. And the other book, Benny's War, which was about the Yom Kippur Wars, which are two wars of what was going on. I mean, there's a lot going on in Israel. So Tuesdays were more into the reading. Thursday, open up with dictation. Maybe we would go into one of the other books. Sometimes they were done with the section that we were studying from this book, and then we would move into the next section. Sometimes we needed to stay a little bit longer. But now, another thing with history, we didn't really do this that much. We spent one day doing this, actually. Let me just be honest. We built a timeline, and we did the timeline as kind of a review. But I know some people with history, they want to build the timeline as they go on a poster board, and that's a great idea. But we used the timeline as you can go either way. It's so much flexibility with unit studies. So much flexibility. Another thing that we did was a map. Okay, what's great is we did a lot of tracing, so you can get tracing paper to trace maps. You can also get an atlas. You can also find stuff online to print them out. I'm giving you so much, I know, I'm sorry. But there were maps in the books, and the kids were able to trace them, and we were able to see how Israel changed through the years based off of what happened with the wars. There was also, we did a couple of essays, reflection essays with the middle schoolers. There's a lot of things to reflect in a lot of different topics. Israel had a lot of these too. We would talk about the conflict with the Palestinians and the Israelis and how they would handle things. Some of the prompts were found in the book. Now, some of the prompts were actually found in this book right here, which was great. And I'll be honest, there were some days it may happen where you have seemed to get through all of this, and on the, let's say Thursday, right, you seem that you've gotten through all of this and you don't really want to move ahead. So you do your dictation, you do your spelling test if that's something you want to do, you do your vocabulary quiz if you want to do that. But then we just sat through and we would go through this and we would read things from here, or we would read those books that we were reading. This was fascinating. My kids would actually spend time on their own reading through this book. Now, I know I overwhelmed a lot of you. So here's what I've done. I have pretty much in the description box below laid everything out for you. Please let me know if you have questions. It seems overwhelming at first when you're building unit studies, especially if you want to touch on every little thing. In reality, a unit study could take the entire day. And then math. Unless you want to add, and you can add math in there. You can be very, very creative with your math and word problems. But for the most people do unit study and then math over here. Another thing I was going to mention too, if you are doing a unit study that has to do with a country or culture, adding a language in there. For example, it crossed my mind. I didn't do it, but I could have done it. We could have been learning Hebrew, and there's an amazing program out there called TalkBox Mom. And if you just buy one box of that language, that's all you need to do, and use that box for the unit study, that thing, TalkBox Mom, is really good for that. That was if you wanted to incorporate a language, if you're doing a country or a culture in specific. So, and if you're interested in seeing a video where I share a little bit of us unit studying, I have one when I had my kids doing the Civil War back in the day. And I also have one where we share some of our Israeli stuff. Also, there's a really good curriculum called Truth Quest. If you want to do some kind of unit study that way, use a book that's already done. That's a great curriculum. So there'll be links right here. You'll see them. So click on one of those and enjoy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.